hills and shallow canyons, and small shrubs and grasses, pale amongst the remnants of last week's snow. After another 10 miles, Zant saw what he was looking for and pulled over.
"This is as close as we're going to get."
He got out, and I did too. It was very quiet. He pulled something out of his jacket that looked like a personal organizer with a fat slug on top. "GPS?" He nodded.
"I want to be able to find our way back."
He logged the car's position and pointed up the rise. The view was the same as we'd had all afternoon, except now there was no road.
"Let's get going."
After a good while, I looked at my watch. It was after 4 o'clock, and the light was beginning to turn.
"I know,"
John said, before I'd even spoken.
"The mark on the map is all I have. We're there, or thereabouts."
"We're not anywhere," I said. "I've never seen a place that is so not somewhere in my entire life." We kept on walking, nonetheless. A mist fell and thickened, and we didn't seem to be making much progress, but I didn't say anything. I didn't have anywhere else to be. Then I stopped, as the world seemed to take a sidestep. "What the fuck is that?"
"Holy shit,"
he said. There was a man a little way ahead of us, far enough for his edges to be blurred by the mist. He was dressed in a gray business suit and black office shoes, and I could hear the sound of his jacket flapping in the wind. The set of his stride was purposeful. Despite this, he wasn't moving. I took a step forward, stopped, reached for my gun, and then left it. Thought again, and got it out anyway. Separating slightly, we approached the walking man. He looked to be in his late 50s. A jagged cut gouged across his neck as far up as his left ear. His upper lip was missing, and there was a smell coming off him, but it wasn't unbearable. It had been very cold and dry. Zant headed around the back. He held his PDA up toward the man's face and started taking pictures.
"Look,"
he said. A metal pole had been driven into the ground behind the man. He'd been tied to it, his body held upright in a way that happened to make him look like he was walking. Zant looked out over what he could see of the plain.
"He said there were 2.
I nodded at the walking man. I guess he was supposed to be going someplace. We walked in the direction that the man was pointed. After 50 yards, we began to sense the lip of a canyon. She was sitting right on the edge. She was about the same age as the walking man, but with her skin in its current condition, it wasn't easy to be precise. Her elbows rested on her knees, and her hands cupped her face. Zant took 2 pictures, then logged the position.
"Okay,"
he said.
"Let's get out of here."
I ignored him and squatted down and looked where she was looking. Her head was tilted forward, as if she was gazing down into the canyon. When I got to the bottom of the canyon, I saw a bulky shape hidden under an outcrop, a small building, flush up against the side of the canyon. We got our guns out again. It was very old, a functional one-room cabin. The door was held by a padlock that didn't look old at all. Someone had gone at the door with an axe or shovel, but not recently. Shapes that looked like letters were visible amongst the scars. I saw something that looked like a big R. Holding his gun ready, Zant used his other hand to click a few pictures onto his little machine. The windows, the walls, the door. I walked straight ahead and kicked the door in. The cabin was full of dead people. 3 sat in a line, on a bench, slumped against the back wall. One was little more than a skeleton, the other 2 dark and vile. One had no arms. The other's abdomen had burst some time before. Other bodies were gathered in a small, deliberate heap on the other side, and at least 2 more lay along the front wall. The state of these indicated none had died recently. A few had scraps and tangles of skin and jerky-like flesh hanging from scaffolding bones. One skull had the upper half of a plastic doll protruding from a hole in its crown. Dust had turned the doll's hair gray. Zant cleared his throat.
"Did they do this?"
"The straw man? It could be. But some of this has been here a long, long time," I said. I backed out over the threshold. Zant came out too, but Then he stopped and stared at something over my shoulder. I turned. It was 20 feet away, on the other side of the canyon, positioned where you would see it when you came out of the cabin. I took a few steps towards it. This body was far more recent. It had been thrown on the ground, arms outstretched, legs bent. Something brown had been nailed to its chest. The unnatural emptiness of the man's gaping mouth told me what it was. Is that the guy? Is that Joseph? Zant didn't have to answer. It was a long walk back to the car. We drove in silence, and at the airport we got flights in different directions. We didn't meet again for another month, by which time everything had changed. Tom Kozilek pulled into the small parking area, crunching over a 6-inch line of snow plowed off the road. He opened the door and hauled himself out, slipped immediately on a rock, and fell full length on the ground. When he pushed himself to his knees, there were small wet cuts on one of his palms, and his forehead and right cheek were dripping. His right ankle hurt, too. Stunned into a winded moment of sobriety, he knew finally that what he was doing was the right thing. He got his rucksack out of the trunk, locked the car, then stepped over the low barrier made of logs, and set off, between the trees, in the opposite direction to the trail. The rucksack had almost nothing in it except alcohol, and he had nothing inside him except alcohol either. Time passed, and he wasn't prepared for how quickly it got dark. Now he was stumbling more than walking, and about as drunk as he'd ever been. Sometimes he muttered to himself. Mainly he kept quiet, saving his breath. The faster he went, the less he had to be aware. When he finished the bottle in his hand, he dropped it and kept on going. When he flicked his flashlight on, he realized that a mist was gathering. It was also unbelievably cold. He had no warning of the fall, landing hard on his face with a crunch that knocked every last breath out of him. He shrugged off the rucksack and rolled over onto his back. His right side felt as if someone had poked a spear in it. After a little longer, he sat up. He'd fallen into a wide, rocky gully, designed to hold a decent spring-thaw stream, but now home to a thin trickle which he could hear from 10 feet away. It was very cold. He decided he'd gone far enough. He pushed himself backwards until his back was against rock, then pulled the rucksack up between his knees and opened it. One of the remaining bottles had smashed, and there was no way he could just shove his hand in, so he upended most of the bag out onto the ground and found the packs of sleeping pills. He was surprised to find that he didn't feel afraid. He started taking the pills, couple at a time, washed down with more alcohol. When his eyelids finally closed, it seemed lighter in his head for a moment, and then began to fade into slate gray and beyond. He expected, insofar as he had any expectations left, that this process would continue until everything became black and silent. He wasn't expecting to wake up in the middle of the night, still drunk, racked with whole-body shivers. He wasn't expecting to be alive, and in 30 kinds of pain. He certainly wasn't expecting to see something standing over him, something big, something that smelled like the scent of rotted meat carried on a cold, cold wind. I had $18 and change, plus less than half a tank of gas. Nothing else at all. So, Bobby, what are we going to do now? Bobby didn't answer because he was dead. He'd been my best friend, and he'd died at a place called the Halls as we tried to catch a psychopath who called himself the Upright Man. The Halls had been blown to Kingdom Come, vaporizing Bobby's body along with it. He'd become an unpredictable conversationalist since. The next morning, I was taking a rest outside a Burger King in West Virginia when a voice finally spoke and answered. I cleaned myself up in the BK's washrooms, treated myself to a globalized breakfast of food-like materials, and drove straight down to Arizona. Once there, I located a residence in Flagstaff and broke in. And so for 5 days...